Is your child generous?
Welcome to Parenting Matters Now, a source of parenting advice a few minutes at a time.
Hi, this is Dr. Roger Smith. With Parenting Matters Now, I will say that 90% of children come here self-centered. In fact, probably more. So that means that they are not generous. And generosity is something that we train our children in. Yes, some children are much more tender. Yes, some are much more prone to think about others. But to really develop the character trait of generosity, that is something that takes a lot of training, time, modeling, all those things. I was introduced to a book. In fact, the gentleman who wrote this book gave it to me at a conference I was in, and it was called Audacious Generosity. And the whole idea that generosity is a desirable trait, not only in adults, but also in children. For that to develop, we must give them practice and training and ways to help them learn to be generous. And I will say this, first of all, children that are 4 and under cannot understand the concepts that are abstract, like generosity, or the word we use so often, sharing. Sharing is a abstract concept, but there can be modeling. There can be ways that we can train them to become generous, to think of the other person, to consider the other person's needs, to put other people's needs before their own, to be able to share what they have. And sometimes what they have to share are words of kindness, words of encouragement. Sometimes they have possessions to share, and sometimes they have time to share. And all these things are components of generosity that we can train our children in, and we can model for them. We can be generous with our time, our kind words, and we model for them how to be generous toward others. So it's not just a thing with money, giving your money away. It is using your money wisely, using your time wisely for others' benefit as well as for your own. And teaching your children those things at an early age, and for it to be just a normal part of life, trains them in the idea, the practice of generosity. Oftentimes we want them to, quote, share their toys. And sometimes what makes more sense to a child is to say, take turns. You'll have your turn now and their turn now and your turn later, or vice versa. But that there is a sense that there is a large amount of something. Maybe it's time with a toy. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's, I'm not sure what. You know your situation, but that it can be divided. Some for me, some for them. Because some for self is still being generous, because we start out with all for self, and we move to where we're giving up more and more of whatever it is, and that we should praise and encourage any effort we see a child making toward thinking of another's need. I recall one time whenever my dad had a grocery store, and we all, as the kids, worked in the grocery store. And there was this one time where a mother with some young children had come in, and actually only one of her 3 or 4 children were there. And she said, would you like, I think it was Lifesavers. You know, he offered him to get some type of little treat, and says, would you like to get that today? And I was so struck with the training that this child had. I think he was probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6. He was somewhere in that range. And he looked at his mother and says, well, can I get one for, and he named his other sibling. Says, if I can't get one for them, I shouldn't get one. I thought, wow, that is a generous mindset. That is a thoughtful. See, he was thinking of the others, because if he showed up with the treat, how would it make the others feel? And can we develop that kind of mindset in our children as they progress through the school age years and the preteens and teens and into adulthood? And would not this world be a better place if we had that kind of thinking about our own benefit? How is it going to help others? That's audacious generosity. And so I encourage you to be generous, to train your children to be generous. Let's make this world a better place. It's Dr. Roger Smith with Parenting Matters Now.
Subscribe to Parenting Matters Now for more advice, or go to rogersmithmd.com to search for more topics. See you next time.